All right, welcome everyone. The Board of Education meeting is called to order. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, colleagues, we're now going to move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. So unless there are objections, the agenda will be approved as printed. Okay, very good. And to get us started this evening, we're going to turn it over to Superintendent Lindberg for a very special recognition of achievement this evening.
Thank you, President Ristich. Well, this evening, on behalf
Superintendent Lindberg, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun here. I forgot roll call.
Oh, all right, we better make sure everyone's here.
Just wanted,
Are we supposed to do
Yeah.
roll call?
well, we just wanted to get to that. So, Secretary Joslin, would you please take roll call, please?
All members are present except for Member Torres, who I believe is supposed to be late.
That's correct. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now moving on to a recognition of achievement. Superintendent Lindberg.
All right.
Thank you.
This evening, on behalf of the Board of Education, Mott High School, and the entire school community, I am pleased to welcome and recognize Mr. Mike Bowling for his generous contribution to Waterford Mott athletics. Mr. Bowling is a longtime community member and parent for former Waterford Mott student athletes. He has long supported the Corsairs as all four of his children were involved in a variety of sports programs while attending Mott. Mike continues to support the Corsairs, often in attendance at football and basketball games. Additionally, Mr. Bowling recently made a considerable financial donation of $10,000 to Waterford Mott Athletics. This generous contribution will be used to improve weight equipment that will be utilized and positively impact all student athletes at Mott. We are incredibly grateful for your continued support and contributions, not only the athletics program at Waterford Mott High School, but especially our current and future student athletes. You have truly made a difference, and we thank you.
And a whole bag of stuff, good stuff and other stuff and all the good things.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I've known Mike for quite a while now, and he is amongst one of my most generous friends. He's, if you need something, he's always there. Thank you for all that you do. Can I say anything?
Yes, please don't tell my wife about the money. And if Mott wins, I want to get a ring. Can I get a ring? Thank you very much. I did it. I love the district. I love my daughters. Grandkids. Anyway, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Mr. Bowling, thank you so much. We appreciate that. That gift is so generous and so kind, and we're just so honored. We're honored for all of your hard work and your commitment, and that's, I think, a testament to the amazing community that we have here in Waterford and over at Mott, and what a timely donation considering Saturday's big game too. So colleagues, I don't know if we had anything.
Thank you, thank you. As a former Corsair myself and as a mother of Corsairs, I greatly appreciate, what you have done for our school and for our community, and, go Big Blue. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bowling. Thank you again. All right. right. That's excellent. Colleagues, we're now going to move on to public comments on action items. And right now, we're going to take public comments on items that we're going to be voting on. So what I see here, I have some green cards in front of me, and these will all be, looks like non-action items. So we'll wait till a little bit later in the agenda for these. In the meantime, is there anyone who would like to address the board this evening on action items, things that we will be voting on? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Colleagues, on now to the consent agenda. So unless there are objections, the consent agenda is approved as presented. Excellent. All right, we're now going to move on to a series of information items, and first up, we're going to hand it over to Assistant Superintendent Elka as well as Amy Dagenhart for our external audit report. And colleagues, we have all of that large packet in front of us from Yo and Yo. If you'd like to follow along.
Thank you very much. Tonight we have our auditor in charge, Jessica Roth, coming to present the audit results for the board and community. Good evening.
Welcome.
Well, tonight I'm here to go through our results for the audit for the year ended June 30th, 2023. You have a lot of stuff in front of you. You have the big audit reports, which is our full audit, but what you have on the top should be the PowerPoint that I'm going to go through tonight, kind of summarizes all the results and the numbers. We start with the first slide here, and that is our audit opinion. That's what we're hired to do, is to give an opinion on your financial statements. We had an unmodified opinion, again this year. That's the highest level of assurance you can receive, the best opinion you can get. What it means is that the statements are prepared in accordance with the standards that they're supposed to be, and that we feel they're free of any material misstatements or errors. One thing we always point out in the audit opinion is if we adopt any new accounting standards. And accounting's been very busy the last few years with new standards. If you remember last year, we had leases. So that was an asset and a liability on the books. Well, this year, the fun one was called Subscription-Based Information Technology Arrangements, or SPIDAs is what we're calling them. Yes, it's a very fun name, and I think that's how everybody feels about them, to be honest. So what this did was it was very similar to leases. We added an asset and a liability on the books for any software agreements. So it's kind of the intangible items. Last year was those tangible things. This is the intangible things. So that'll come up a little bit as we move through the report with some of the numbers. First up here, we have your balance sheet. So these are all the assets and liabilities of the school district. We have it broken down into different columns for what we consider major funds and non-major funds. Major funds are really the big funds. I'm going to focus mainly on the general fund since that's your main operational fund. I will point out that 22 Series 2 fund, that is the new bond that was passed in March 2023. So that's why it's some bigger, or sold. That's why those numbers are a little bigger there. You'll see there's a lot of assets and liabilities, and that was a new one this year. So if we focus on the general fund, you'll see total assets were about $38.4 million this year. Last year, about 32.8. The increase is mainly due to that due from other governments line, and those are receivables from the state and the feds. State aid was a lot higher this year, so about 2.6 million of that increase is state receivables. The other difference is mostly ESSER receivables. So there was funding requested after year end related to expenses during the year, so that receivable is a lot bigger than it was last year. Liabilities at about 15 million this year. Last year that was about 12.7 million. Increase there mainly in the unearned revenue category, again mainly due to state aid. Received a lot of revenue in, not all of it had been spent as of year end, so that unearned amount was higher than the year before. Continuing with the balance sheet, we have our deferred inflows and our fund balances. Deferred inflows, we're going to talk about that operating grants line a little bit coming up too, but that was $3.8 million. That's revenue that we have to defer till next year, and I will talk about that some more. The leases, that's the one we enacted last year. If you looked back at the last page, there was an asset, and then there's this liability for the exact same amount. And then we get down to your fund balance. So general fund had an ending fund balance of about $15.9 million. That's an increase of almost 1.4 from last year, $1 million. And you'll see that in the next slide too. Moving on to your statements of revenues and expenses, you can see the general fund brought in about $118 million this year in revenue. Expenditures, not much behind that. Our change in fund balance was $1.4 million almost, and that's what we added to fund balance, so that's good. If we compare to your budget, what your actual results were, you can see what you originally budgeted there. You thought you'd use up some fund balance of about $865,000. The final budget passed by the board had $6.5 million in addition to fund balance was expected. That actually came in at about $1.4 million, like we just mentioned. Some of that has to do with that operating grant deferral number I just mentioned. Some of that revenue is going to get deferred till next year, and we'll talk about that again. So that's a big chunk of it. Next up, we just show you what your general fund revenue breakout is. Where's all your money coming from? You can see most of it comes from the state. The other big chunks there are the feds and the local, which is mostly property taxes. All those percentages very consistent with the year before, within 1 or 2%, so no major changes there. Same thing with expenditures, break it out by the types. Obviously, salaries and benefits are usually the biggest cost for any district and most organizations. Coming in at about a little over 80% or almost 80% there. Very consistent with other districts, typically float between that 80-85% range, depending on kind of the breakout of the other expenses. Again, all those were very consistent with the year prior. Just to give you a little trend of what's been going on the last couple of years, you can see over the years those revenues and expenses have been trending up. I will remind you, and I think we talked about this last year, a lot of that's that one-time funding, a lot of ESSER funding coming in. So I would expect those to start going down probably after next year. We still have some ESSER 3 we're spending there. So those will start to trend back down. Also taking a look at your revenue and expenditures per pupil, same thing, those should usually trend together. And when we see the next slide, the pupil amounts are down a little bit, but the revenue and expenditures are up because of all that one-time funding and extra state aid and things you've been getting. That amount per pupil is still increasing even though enrollment is not. This is your 5-year enrollment trend. You can see it was about a little over 200 decrease this year, about 2%. Pretty consistent with other districts. You know, no one's really cranking on the enrollment or it's going up, but you guys have just a small steady decline, which is what I'm seeing everywhere. This is always a kind of a popular side. It's our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. This is a percentage that the state looks at as well. You can see at the top there, we obviously don't have the data for all the other school districts for this year, so we compare last year to see where you were at. You can see your peers last year were around 18%, other districts and your size between 5 and 9 or 10,000 students. The state was around 20%. MDE recommends about 15%. You can see last year you were at about 13. This year you're at 14. So you're hovering right around that recommended amount, which is good. That's what I had for the numbers. Now we're going to get down to some of the results. For the financial statement audit, you can see a lot of no's there. That means we had no findings in relation to the financial statements this year. The next section has to do with federal awards, so we do a separate audit of your federal dollars called a single audit. Our results for that are there as well. We had no findings. There's a lot of federal money coming in, as I mentioned, so we ended up testing 4 different programs this year, which is a lot. We tested Title I, your special education cluster, Education Stabilization Fund, which is the other name for ESSER, and then the Head Start cluster. So we touched a lot of your federal dollars this year and still had no findings related to any of those. The last piece of the audit we're required to give to you, besides the reports, is a governance letter. It tells you anything that we think you should know about that isn't reported in the statements. There's a couple things I'll highlight from there. We always let you know if there's estimates in your statements. You have a couple, they're the traditional ones. Useful lives of fixed assets, how long we depreciate things is an estimate. Those net pension and net OPEB liabilities that are on your big district-wide statements, those are calculated based on an actuarial report with a lot of assumptions in it. And then that lease receivable number. So last year we booked the leases receivable and the liabilities. There's some estimates there as to if we're going to take renewals, what we think the implied interest rate is. So a little bit of estimates in there as well. We let you know if there's any upcoming standards. There's one coming up because they're just staying busy at GASB. This one isn't going to be in effect until your 6/30/25 year end. What it does is the accrual we do for compensated absences at the end of the year. It's changing how that's done a little bit. It's kind of taking some more estimates into play. Actually, instead of just basing it on what people's balances are, considering what they're actually expected to take. So it's going to add a little more judgment and estimate into that, but don't need to worry about it for 2 years at least. Next up here, while we didn't have any findings, we do have a few recommendations or comments that I'm going to go through. There were 4 of them. The first one was budget overages. So you guys pass an amended budget every year. We have to compare that to your actual results by function and by fund. We did have quite a few overages by function. In total, you guys are under, so that's okay, but the state wants you to be in compliance in each of those function areas. They say if you're over $1, that's non-compliant. So there were 6 functions in the general fund where we were over. Also, special ed, childcare, the senior and student activity, and the food service fund had overages. So we just want to make sure we're tightening up that budget process at the end of the year and that we're getting a little closer to actual results. Food service fund balance, I think I've had this at every single district. So we got a lot of money when we were getting free lunches. What that resulted in is our food service fund balances are too high. The requirement is they're not supposed to be more than 3 months average expenditures. So the school district has and will continue to work on submitting a spend down plan to the state and how you're going to spend that money, what you're going to do to bring that fund balance down. So we just have to call attention to it because they run the numbers and they'll see it's too high. Unavailable revenue. So this is what I talked about earlier that I said I was going to kind of mention later. So according to modified accrual accounting, if you have a receivable at the end of the year for something, and you guys have quite a few for your federal grants where you've incurred expenses but you haven't received the money yet, so we have a receivable on the books. If that receivable isn't received within 60 days of June 30th, then it can't be recognized as revenue on your statements. So what this does is it causes kind of a mismatch because you have the expenses, but we can't show the revenue because we didn't get it within the 60 days. So now that revenue is going to show on next year's financial statements. And the reason that's a concern is because it's a big amount. You guys were close to $4 million that we have this mismatch. So it makes it a little bit harder to compare budgeting, to monitor your expenses and your revenues. And then we see those big swings like you did where your amended and your actual are very different. So we'd like to see those grants reconciled sooner so that those requests can get put in and received before the 60 days of year end. You know, it's not wrong that it's submitted later. However, I would say it should be more of an exception than the norm. Most of my districts really push to get those reimbursement requests out and received before the 60 days so that we can match up that revenue and expense. So we just like to see those grants reconciled a little sooner after year end so that we're getting that money in a little more timely. The last one here, I mentioned we looked at 4 different major programs. We had some budgeting issues with the programs themselves as well. There's budgets that are issued by the agency, usually MDE, by function, by object, as to what you can spend in each area. We noted there were some overages in those functions and objects. In some cases, it's where they plan to amend and fix that, but we'd like to see those amendments done sooner if we know there's overages. For ESSER 2 and 3, everything for those grants was budgeted in one account. And we don't like that because, number one, it doesn't match up with MDE's budget. And it makes it a little hard to monitor things if you're in line with your expenditures for each category if it's all sitting in one account. So we'd just like to see those budget procedures tightened up a little bit as well. Other than that, I would say the audit went smoother this year. Preliminary, we usually come out before year end to do a lot of our testing. That went really well. They had a lot of that stuff ready. With 4 major programs, there's a lot to test. So I would say that went really good this year. I'd say the audit definitely went smoother as well. Still some areas of improvement, still a little bit of lagging, I think kind of reconciling the grants, which is why we have some of the comments we do. But overall, you know, I can tell the team has grown a lot, both in size and in knowledge. So I appreciate everything they do and another good year.
Colleagues, do we have any comments or questions?
No one's going to jail.
Not from me. I'm not calling 911, that's not that.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your hard work, and we appreciate you coming in here and giving us this overview.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. So we're going to keep Assistant Superintendent Elka up here and welcome up Ms. Dagenhart, and we're going to talk a little bit more about our businesses and finances. So welcome you too.
Here, you want to do this and I'll start?
Thank you very much. What we like to do after we present the audit to the board is sort of present a little bit more depth on a few areas to just give a little bit more flesh to some of the stuff they talked about. Because of course the audit is like up here and then we deal with down here. So we just wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about that. And of course, Amy Dagenhart, our Director of Finance, is also with me because obviously she is very integral to the presentation. So again, we just want to talk about the fact that we had an unmodified opinion. That is the highest you can get, and that's what we strive to do every year. I can't think of the last time we probably ever not had one, but if you don't have an unmodified opinion, that's very bad, very bad. So this is the lowest level of accepted opinion that we would ever want to have. So the next thing is no findings. That is great, because you could still have a finding and have an unmodified opinion. But we like to not have findings because that means something rose to a level that could be problematic with the financials. So we will always make sure that we don't have that. And as I've said before, that is not the work of a day. That is the work of the whole district. That is everybody that deals with programs, with finances, and then the office keeping track of it. So this really is everybody doing their jobs every day of the year to get here. And then based on the fact that we had an unmodified opinion and no findings, we are considered a low-risk auditee by the federal government. And again, that's a great thing. And that always looks at the current and the past audit. So it's not just if you did good today, but you did bad last year, you're not a low-risk auditee. But again, that also makes it easier because what the auditors then have to look at can be reduced, which means it can reduce the effort that your business office has to go through. And then we talked about the 4 major grant programs that were audited. Normally we have maybe 2, and we're going to show a little history of what we had. And when we say 4 major grant programs, you probably heard her say cluster. That means that there's multiple grants under that cluster, and each of those has its own budget, its own guidance, and its own requirements. But when they audit the whole cluster. So it may be 4, but I think we added up to...
Oh, you'll see.
Okay. Many more. And then we have the 4 written recommendations for improvement. Anytime we have written recommendations for the auditor, we always review them. And we'll talk a little bit about that because it doesn't mean we always agree with the auditor. And we will say why we didn't agree if that was the case and what we do to mitigate the risk that they foresee with some of their written recommendations. And so we always look at that. We talk to them so that they know we're going to review them, what we're doing, and if we're going to make changes for next year so they're aware of it. So what we really want to show is all the way back to 1819, just sort of what was a normal year. And
1819 was the last year that we had one cluster that was audited.
And that was pre-COVID, completely pre-COVID year. Mm-hmm. So that was one cluster, but you can see there's 3 programs that they actually go in and look at. And like I said, each program has its own budget, its own guidance, its own requirements, and they treat it separately, but they'll report it as a cluster. In 1920, we had 3 major programs, but you can see there's one cluster. Technically, Head Start became a cluster, but Title I, Special Ed, and you can see we have 2 areas under that. IDA flow through, which is everything but preschool, and then preschool, and then Head Start. And then 2021 is where things really started changing. That's where the ESSER dollars, the Fed dollars, CARE Act, all of those things that you've heard us talk about changed. And the federal government said, this year we want you to just do those dollars. That's what we want you to audit for the single audit. And so they said, don't bother with anything else, focus on those. So that's why we have those two. But as you can see, both of those are considered clusters, and they had various things under them that were audited. So you had the gear, the ESSER 1, the ESSER Equity. Those are 3 different programs, each with their own requirements, their own budget, everything like that. And then with the Coronas Relief Fund, which we call the CRF fund, those again were 2 different things, or 3 different things, because 2 came from the state and then 1 came from county. So even though we got that grant money from the county, it was the CARES Act that helped us, we paid for a lot of devices and some other tech items and things, that still fell under that grant and had to be with that cluster. Now, for the last 2 years, we had, again, last year they said you had to do your education stabilization or ESSER fund, and then we got some one-time money called emergency connectivity funds, the ECF. That was where we did a lot of devices with that. That made it because it was over a certain dollar amount. And then they said, okay, we want you to get sort of back into it, so pick one of your clusters. So they did the child nutrition. And what they normally do for normal grants, which is Title I IDA and child nutrition, and then now Head Start, is they try to rotate them so that you're not doing all 4 in 1 year, you're doing maybe 2 every other year. So they don't want you to be hit every year. Now, that doesn't mean anything really changes with the requirements that we're supposed to do. All our program requirements, our guidance, everything still is the same, but they just aren't fixated on those. So even though we don't have something that's not actually in a special program that's being audited, they still audit those. This is just a higher level of audit, intense scrutiny than a regular one, but everything gets audited. This just gets a little bit extra scrutiny. So this year, we had, like we said, the four areas, and so we have 2 that have several grants in there. So even like, so we had the special education cluster, but we had ARF or ARP flow through and ARP preschool added. So we went from 2 to 4 programs under that cluster. Then we had our Title I, we had our Head Start, because they said we want to get you back into your cycle, which means if you hadn't done it, you needed to do it. So as you can see, prior year we did nutrition, so we didn't have to do that this year. Then when we got to the education stabilization funds, anything that was considered ESSER 2 had to be done. So our 23B, even though it didn't meet the threshold, which is $750,000 spent, it was still considered part of that cluster and had to be included. So that is what when we're talking about the 4 programs, I think I add up about 12 different grants that had to be looked at. So we're going back to the results and just talking about one of the things that Jessica had talked about, but we want to make it very clear if someone's looking at last year's financials and this year's, what they're going to notice is the fund balance, for the ending fund balance from last year and the beginning from this year is different. And it does say restated, but she didn't go into a lot of detail about why. So when we had this new GASB 96, which we call SPIDA, or SPIDA, it depends on what you would like to refer it to, if we had a multi-year agreement, which is what we did for some of our curriculum items, they were soft-year, multi-year agreements that we prepaid. Because we prepaid them, because they were multi-year agreements, we actually normally will put them in prepaid accounts, which is an asset. What this GASB said is that because it's software, and that's a time thing, not an actual hard thing, you don't actually have the right to use this until you get to that time. So it's not an asset. It's actually a liability. So they decided to put it as a reduction of your fund balance. So each year, when we get to the next year, that amount, that 0.8 will reduce as we're allowed to amortize it and expense it. So this was one of those fun things that we love having to explain to people because it's really technical, and GASB always puts these out saying that this adds to the transparency of the financials and really explains what a business is doing. I can say unequivocally between auditors and all of my colleagues, we agreed this was probably not what adds to the financial statements and how people interpret them. So we are going to have this. Anytime we have a multi-year agreement where we prepay, we are going to have this coming up. But it is truly a timing change. We are basically adding that money back each year. But unfortunately, it did restate our fund balance because the GASB was effective for this year. So what they do is they go back to what you had as prepaid as of 7/1, and they adjust it for it. So we really had a fund balance of 15.3, but it got restated for a beginning fund balance of 14.5. So I don't want people to think that 800,000 just like evaporated. It did not. It was an adjustment, and it will come back. It's a timing adjustment. So we had, as she said, 118 million in revenue for the general fund, 116.6 expenditures. So we had 1.4 million that we added to the fund balance. So on the financials, you'll see that we had an ending fund balance of 15.9.
And that was in Jessica's presentation too, that you saw.
So we wanted to take it one step farther, because this is what we always like to do as well, is where did we think we were going to end? And then where did we end? So we start with our actual ending fund balance of 15.9, and we had 3 things that were different this year. The first one I've already talked about. We had the GASB reclass of 0.8 million. We had the timing change that she talked about, the 3.8, but we actually had two other items of 0.2 million or 200,000. That's also in there. So 3.8 was grants. We have requested and received that money. We had 100,000, it was from the foundation. We have received it. We also had 100,000 from the ISD, which we're waiting for. However, all of those things happened after the 60-day rule. We cannot include them. So they will be in our revenue for 23-24. And then the last thing is when we look at how we do our expenditures, we looked at how we spent more than we expected. So we have about 1.2 million more than we expected. Now, those were one-time uses of the recurring, but we wanted to mention it, and I'm going to have Amy talk about the breakdown for that.
Okay, so the breakdown of that 1.2 million is approximately 200,000 in transportation costs between fuel and bus repairs. Then there was about 600,000 in maintenance. And that was multiple things, and as we all know, we try to put as much as we can in our bond, but when there are things that are repairs, those do have to come out of the general fund, not out of bond. So there was a lot of roofing patches, repairs, and as we've talked about here too, it makes a difference whether that roofing is a replacement of a whole portion or just patching, and we've talked about that. We had some repairs to water heaters, we had some HVAC controllers, some Jace units, and then we also had plumbing repairs that we had. Also included in that was some equipment that was purchased that was budgeted in the previous year and included in the fund balance and was paid for, received in 22-23. Then we had about 400,000 of other, and that consisted of approximately 200,000 in benefits. 150 of that was an increase to the workers' comp reserve, and then approximately 200,000 in pupil support. And that pupil support is, as I technically like to call it, the 2-1 functions, and those are health, OT/PT, social work, psych, speech, those pupil supports that are in those areas.
Yeah.
Just before we leave this slide, so the 1.2, I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to save most of them. But for this one, the one-time expenditures using recurring funds, the 1.2 million, I recognize that you're adding it back in for budget purposes only to say that, okay, these were one-time expenditures, so we're going to add it back in and say that we can then, but don't we budget for these types of expenditures in our following year budget?
No, because that's why we labeled them as one-time expenditures.
Right, but don't we always have these kind of recurring, I mean, we always have to do a repair here and an issue, I mean, it's
Yes,
all the time.
but what we're saying is we had more than we expected. So we did not expect the amount of repairs that we had. We did not expect the lawnmowers to come in there, so we didn't adjust the budget for it. So what we call those is one-time expenditures, so we are not adjusting the budget permanently for these because we believe the budget will go back down to where it was supposed to be.
So the 1.2 million are expenses that exceeded what we had budgeted for those types of repairs.
Correct.
That we do, so we're going to keep our same budget number year over year, and we're adding 1.2 back in, saying we spent 1.2 million more than what we think we're going to spend this year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So that gets us back to what we thought our ending budgeted fund balance would be at 21.9. And as I point out, the 4.8 is timing, so that will be flowing back into our fund balance. The 1.2 is a permanent reduction, but again, it's not a recurring cost, so that's not increasing our budget for next year. So we just wanted, again, to talk about ESSER 2 and 3. ESSER 2, the award was 4.4. As of September 30th of this year, all of it has been requested and received. So ESSER 3, we have 10 million. We've requested about 3.8 and received it. We have about 6.2 left. And I would remind you, just as we did when we did our ESSER update, we have about $1 million that we haven't actually allocated. So we are working through with that in the next couple months to work with instruction to see where we can allocate those funds for the most impact. So in March, we'll be doing another update, if we don't do one earlier than that, to just explain how and we expect by then to have it all allocated so you can see where we're using it. So we talked about the 4 improvements that they included in the audit. So budget overages, as she said, state looks at bottom line, but they do require in the audit, if we have a function level overage, that they include that in the audit. And auditors love for that to be less. And we would love it to be less too. But again, this is a budget. We really do make sure we look at bottom line. We like to use our budget as a way to look at variances. Where is it off from where we expected, and did that need to change? So one of the things that we looked at is we actually had a flip in the benefits. So we were under budget in the 1-1, which is like the basic instruction, and we were over budget in everything else. So we're like, okay, we'll just need to know to flip that and adjust that. So we like to use those as ways to see what our variances were from what we planned. So for example, if we have a vacancy but we plan to fill that position, we are not going to adjust the budget, we will have a variance. However, if we have positions that we wanted to reduce, then we would go ahead and reduce that permanently. So we like to use the budget for this, but we do agree that a couple of these, for a variety of reasons, a lot of it having to do with the grants and moving the grants around last minute to take advantage of all of the opportunities, did make some of those variances higher than we would even like. But this is our opportunity to take a look at that, make sure that we can make adjustments, and we'll reflect those in future amendment to the board. So the next thing was talking about the fund balance for the food service. So last year, we did have more than we should have, and it is based on a calculation that changes every year. And the first spend down plan is due in January. We submitted in January, and it was approved. We have an update we do in June, which says, how's it planning, how's it going? We submitted it, and we approved it. So for this year, when we do the calculation, we did not have an overage for this year, which seems a little weird, but that's the way the calculation works. They look at just what you did for this year. We were fine this year. We will continue to work on our spend down plan from last year. We had some things like Stepanski. We had the Mason freezer that you've all approved. Those are the kind of things that we're still working on, and that is purely acceptable to MDE, and we included that in our June plan. The next thing is talking about unavailable revenue. And we always like to make sure that our revenue and our expenditures do agree. So we do agree with that. And we agree with their expectation that we'll just focus on our timeliness at the end, try to make sure. We've already talked about it many times about how we're going to do that and what we need to put in place to make sure that we get it done before the 60-day rule comes in place. So the federal grant monitoring and budgeting, they talked about just the function level and about the grant budget. So we had a couple things going on with that. I'll address the ESSER first because, again, auditors love for you to budget things. When we started ESSER, with ESSER 1, when we had $1 million, we were all over that. Not a problem. We can put it into the proper budget line and go from there. But I will remind people, when you talk about the proper budget line, for one person, if you hire a person, you can have 5 accounts for that one person because you have their salary and their benefits. If you have them in different functions, you've just started to expand the number of counts, which means the number of lines that you have to adjust the budget. So when we got to ESSER 2, where it went from 1 million to 4.4, we made the decision to keep these on Excel worksheets. There was no way that we'd be able to keep our financial system up to date. However, we did, in kept MDE up to date as we're supposed to do. So the budget on MDE was always correct, always the way it was supposed to be, but we decided for the amount of work in the one-time grant, it wasn't worth our time. Our focus needed to be on how the expenditures were being spent, the backup was correct, the guidance was followed through. So for ESSER, this is the only time we would not do this. We normally will always have the full budget on our software so that we can track it. So I wanted to talk about that. This is not normally something we do. We are only doing it in this case because it's just so complicated. So again, when we went from 4.4 to 10 million, we realized that was not, we just did not have the time. Our time needed to be on where the expenditures were. So that is the only exception. So for the other, yes, we had a couple programs where they were not amended timely. We're working with the department in question so that they know they need to make sure those are amended in a proper amount of time. So just talking about next steps is we will be working on our amendments for the 23-24 budget, and of course we have our normal amendments for enrollment, for the budget that was approved, those kind of things we'll have. We'll go ahead and talk about anything that we know about at that point. We have had, and that's the next part, 140 new grants and categoricals in this budget. We normally have 23. So we are not the only ones struggling. MDE is struggling. What they have done is many of these grants went to departments that have never overseen grants, never written up guidance, never used any of the systems that we use to submit the information they require. And as a point, we're all struggling to get the information in a timely manner. So we know of those 149, the handful that we're most likely going to qualify for, and we've been working on those. I'm not saying it's perfect. We just found out about the FAFSA through the counselor. And that was where we found out from Kevin Walters. We had an update last Friday from him that this was a department that has only worked with certification. They've never done a guidance. They didn't realize how to do it. They have streamlined it into the weekly Thursday memo for MDE for anything. So they would tell them, here's the grant, here's your deadline, here's where you go to put it. That was not followed with that one. So it's great. Somebody got it. It's great that they did it, and it's great that they sent it on to us so that we can account for it and make sure the budget's there and we follow the rules. But that's just one example of one grant. There are several other grants where we still don't have guidance on that we're waiting to get information for. There are others where the information is just coming out. And for example, when we do just normal budgets for MEPSers, which is where they give us money to offset some of our pension costs, we normally don't get those numbers till November anyways. So there is just a normal lag in some of the stuff we're getting. So we are working as good as possible, but we do expect that we're going to get some more as we go along, and they've said that same thing. They're dealing with a 25 to 30% vacancy rate in MDE, which is creating more of a problem of trying to get guidance out in a timely manner for us. But so far, we've been doing pretty good between all the people that are in the instruction side, as well as the business side, as well as our colleagues. We've been catching all of the ones that are open and available and applying for them. So we are taking advantage of everything that we can right now. The next thing that we'll be looking for is the January 2024 revenue consensus. That'll give us an idea of how we finished with 2023 and how we're looking for 23-24. We don't have any data right now in 23-24, but 22-23 had a modest decline, so everything still looks really good for next year. So.
And I just wanted to point one thing out. I know Jessica said that the department grew in size. That is not the case. The department has not grown in size. I think what she was referring to is that when she came out to audit, actually all of my positions were actually filled. But other than that, the department has not grown in size.
Thank you, you two. Colleagues, what comments or questions do we have? Member Sutherland.
First of all, I want to thank you for the tremendous amount of effort and work that goes into not just the day-to-day job of taking care, especially relative to all the influx of ESSER monies and grants and so forth. We recognize that your job has been exponentially harder. We're thrilled to have had this extra money through COVID, but it does create a lot of accounting and a lot of extra work to ensure that we're meeting all of those obligations. So thank you for that. It's a double-edged sword there. It's a great thing for us to have that money, but it does add to the amount of detail and work that we have to do to account for it. And I know that that's not going away, though. Come September of this coming year, we should be in a much cleaner state, but recognizing that the state is now adding more stipulations. So I do understand that. I do want to call out, as a board member and as someone trying to really digest and understand, and as treasurer, in 21-22, we had the 4.8 million where we incurred significant expenses of those 4.8 million, but we had no approved grant awards submitted, so we couldn't recognize the revenue to offset that incurred expense. And that was because because we didn't have an approved grant awarded, therefore we did not have the revenue in time. That grant award notification was not approved for the award by June 30th, I understand, but that's because it wasn't submitted. So because Waterford didn't submit that on time, that 4.8 million then went into the current year that we're looking at, which in effect is inflating revenue from that perspective because the offsetting expenses were in the prior year. And so this year, again, we had $4 million where we incurred all of the expenses, but we did not receive the revenue in time for the August 31st deadline. And that's because we didn't submit the request for reimbursement until after that 60-day cutoff. So I recognize the rationale was that you were still trying to figure out which the expenses should go, but in my conversations with the auditor, that should be the exception, that shouldn't be the rule. I know that we do now have 3.8 million left of ESSER 3, and I'm requesting that we try to at least have that revenue in hand to offset those expenses for this current year. The concern is this. So in both instances, for the 4.8 million and then the 4 million, when we reconcile in September, it creates a distorted view of revenue and expenses for the previous fiscal year, and it convolutes the following year's budget with prior year revenues that don't include the offsetting expenses. It also creates a distorted view of revenues versus expenses, which makes it difficult for us as board members or anyone really to understand what the actual expenses were and the actual revenue was for a given year, which making sure that we're budgeting and balancing and spending appropriately, it does convolute that. And then in both instances, expenses without corresponding revenue in the applicable fiscal year makes it difficult to decipher what the following year's budgeted revenue and expenses consists of, because again, we have a convoluted year over year monies that were expensed and didn't have the revenue. And I think maybe, and to a lesser degree, but still important to know, is that in both instances resulted in a delay of receiving these funds, which means there are cash flow and interest implications for the district as well. So I just want to call attention that when I am personally reviewing, when the general public is reviewing, when we're looking at this, it makes it very, very clouded. It's not wrong, but it makes it very confusing and very difficult to actually sit back and go, how are we doing expenses to revenue? Because of the way that they're influxed after the fact. So I just want to call that out. I'm really hopeful that, with that 3.8 million remaining of the ESSER 3, that we can have that revenue and expenses in the same fiscal year. So, thank you again.
Colleagues, other comments or questions? Okay, excellent. Thank you, you two. Okay. Let's keep Assistant Superintendent Elka here to talk to us a little bit about our elementary playground improvements.
So thank you very much. For information tonight, we are bringing forward elementary playground improvements. So we split our elementaries into 2 summers. That is a more successful plan when it works with our other projects that are going on. So for summer of 2024, we'll be doing Beaumont, Donaldson Hills, Grayson, and Houghton. So basically, we included an update of our elementary playgrounds in the 2020 bond. And basic reason is many of the pieces are at their end of life, and we also have to remove some for safety reasons. So those two reasons really moved this plan up a little bit more than where it was. We had it in the third series, we brought it up because when we're doing the inspections annually, we just keep taking more things off. So we really wanted to move it and get it done so that we could have a great playground, because the playgrounds do provide a well-rounded emotional experience for our elementary students that goes more than just the chance to enjoy themselves outside, but physical, social, cognitive, and emotional development. And then, of course, that playtime also helps them with their academic performance. So what we did is, through our architect, French and Associates, we worked with a certified playground designer that would work with each school. And what they do is they look out their existing layout and they talk to them about what they didn't like, what the kids weren't using, and what kind of new toys or equipment they really wanted, and how they liked the layout of their playground. So this certified playground designer worked with each building's principal on the plan for that, and that's what you have in your documentation was the plan. And of course, I can do the full one if you would like to. It is very exciting to have all of these things that we have for the new equipment and everything else. So basically, the principals drove this with the playground designer. He worked with them as to what was best practice on the different equipment and things like that. The one thing that came out of it, of course, which wasn't necessarily a surprise to everybody, was we are getting rid of the pea gravel. We will have mulch back. I think that was pretty much universal among everybody. So, so we're pretty excited to get rid of the pea gravel and have the mulch back. So basically, the bid will be coming in at the end of November. We will be meeting with each of the building principals to take a look at it. Our priority is to have the new equipment put in. So even though the playground also shows like an outdoor classroom, it has a walking track, it has trees, those are probably not going to be done, and we've been upfront with each of the principals. We are focusing on getting the new equipment and the new equipment installed. So that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to meet with each principal to make sure that the bids come in with the budget, and if we have to prioritize any work. So I know one exception, for example, is we have one walkway at Houghton. It really is not ADA coded, so we are replacing that and doing a better job there. But for the majority of it, this will be out of their playground budget that we have in the 2020 bond.
Colleagues, what comments or questions do we have? Yes, Member Patricia.
Okay, so why are we getting rid of the pea gravel? It's,
So basically, as one principal put it, and I think says it best, the pea gravel has been weaponized by our elementary students. That is the first thing. The second thing is it is actually becoming a hazard on the concrete walking paths. It is a danger when people are like running across it and things like that. We've had a lot of people trip, hurt themselves. It is just not conducive to a playground with early elementary children. So yes.
it's easier to clean up, it doesn't travel as far, it doesn't get in.
Yeah, we're finding it gets in everywhere. You know, the kid falls, they have it embedded in their skin, so they
Because they did
track it
something
into-
dumb. When you do something dumb, it should hurt. Don't do that again.
So yes, that was pretty much universal that every principal said, can we get rid of the pea gravel? It's just been problematic across so
Okay.
many ways. So yes, we had no problem okaying that.
Okay.
Member Sutherland.
Just on that same note, I'm assuming that mulch is going to be more expensive because we'll have to replace it more often than gravel.
Yes, so we did do a cost comparison with the rubberized mulch, but that cost was so much more even over, I think we went out 10 to 20 years. It was still cheaper to do mulch even at replacing it every year. So we did do a comparison, and yeah, there was no real comparison cost-wise. So yes, every year we will have to top up the mulch, yes.
Colleagues, other comments or questions?
Slivers, they're gonna get slivers. You're hearing about that. Parents complaining, I've got slivers for my kid.
Engineered wood fiber, it's a little different.
Okay, that's what you say now. They're gonna think it's slivers. It's dirt. Oh, I thought it was in there, so.
So we do have it at Schoolcraft right now, when we redid that playground. So you can always check with Ms. Velez and see how she likes it.
You know, pea gravel, yep, that's pea gravel. It's pretty easy to figure out.
It gets we walked the sites yesterday.
Okay.
It is everywhere. It's all over the poured in place.
It just gets everywhere.
I mean, and
It doesn't stay where it's supposed to.
It's all
Mulch
over.
does to a greater degree stay where it's supposed to.
I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I miss it. We're taking away all my fun stuff.
They think it's fun too. They do.
The principals, however, do not think it's fun.
Alex, any other comments, questions, or move on? All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, Assistant Superintendent Alka and Mrs. Kutchy.
Okay, so the next info item is phone headsets, and I am going to let Ms. Cucci lead this, so she knows far more than I will ever need to know about phone headsets.
Good evening, everyone. So we are bringing an information item with hope to bring for a recommendation in the next meeting. Currently, our district phone headsets are at end of life, and we actually do not have enough to put in the new Stepanski site. So what that alluded to was we need to replace those. On average, I looked at last school year, we replaced 27 headsets. Prior year was 21. The more years they go in end of life, the more we utilize them. They were purchased 12 years ago. The kicker is, currently we have 14 in stock. So looking at our years based, that's why we're bringing the proposal now. Because we would hope if awarded in December, there's like a 30-day turnaround. So we would get those to replenish our stack to at least get the Stepanski site up and running, and then any replacements we need currently. Then come summer, to also offset cost, our team at the technology team will be installing these. We will not be having an outside entity install. The service provider will set them up, program them, have them ready to go. We'll just need to plug and play them. But that is a cost savings to us, and we know we can do that over the summer, so that's one piece we wanted to save on. So our hope with that is, and I know headsets aren't fancy anymore, but every classroom and every office has them for safety and security reasons. So we did wanted to let you know, as an information item, we'll bring it before for recommendation at the December 7th meeting.
Colleagues, comments or questions? So we don't yet have the bids?
We do not. Nope.
Member Sutherland?
Okay, I'm just going to call it what it is. By phone handset, do you mean phone handset?
Yes.
So the phone that they pick up and use?
Yes.
We have to keep replacing those, and we only have 14 in stock?
Correct.
Okay, and how many do we need at Stepanski?
Oh,
Pretty big number, I'm
It's a
assuming?
pretty big number. I'd have to redouble check that, but it's well over, because every office, every classroom. So I have that number, I can get it for you.
No, that's okay. I'm just, it's a pretty big number.
Yes.
And so we are anticipating that the bulk of what we'll be purchasing here will first go to Stepanski.
At 100%.
And then backfill and completely replace everybody's
We are
handset, or-
completely replacing everyone's.
So we're not waiting for them to fail?
No, absolutely not.
Unless we have an issue with supply chain?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
yep.
Are there multiple bids? Are you looking at multiple
We will be.
vendors for
Yep,
this? Okay.
Yep. We're running a bids with the Burton Mallow team, and we're going to look at multiple for this, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
So how do they fail? It's like Megan's phone after she talks to me, it's down real hard, or?
It's a combination. It's also a matter of, after 12 years of using them in the daily and students knocking them on the floor sometimes and things like that happens, it's just wear and tear. It's a device that will elude. Typically, a normal headset in the classroom will last you about 6-7 years, so the factor that we've gotten 12, I mean, granted, we had COVID in there, so there was a year they weren't really utilized, that might have helped us. But the factor that we've gotten to 12, and then this year when we called our current vendor to look at Stepanski, that's when they told us we can't get those headsets anymore. So that's where we ran into okay, we really need to make a plan. Yeah.
Is there a compromise for our staff members that utilize these phones to wait until they fail to get them one?
No, not
I mean,
at all.
why are we replacing them while we have perfectly good ones working still in the?
So it's a combination. We're noticing that their end of life is really cycling. So like we said last year, we had 27. We've noticed, especially when we do construction in certain rooms, we're taking those away, trying to hook them back up, and either because how they've been packed or how they've been set, they don't hook back up. So we really want to do the slew so that we're all on the same. The other piece is because we use the VPOP system, the voice over internet protocol, they all need to match, because that's
Okay.
how the system all works. So if they don't all match and they're not on the same software, that's going to put us in a tricky situation.
So that would be the reason they all have to be
Yes.
replaced? I mean, they're not going to work
Correct.
if we keep our old ones
We do
in
not
place.
anticipate that they would, no.
Okay. If there's any way we can, it just stretches the life of
Yeah,
those that, you know.
and we looked at that possibility, but knowing that software in 12 years has upgraded so much, all the vendors have told us there's no possibility of using that.
Okay,
match.
then
But
that's
in
the answer, 'cause
future-
otherwise-
In the future, we would like to do that if we can.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Alex, any other comments, questions? Thank you so much. Okay, well, we're going to keep you up here. We're going to talk a little bit about teacher devices.
There are. So Megan has a sample of the device we are bringing for information tonight without the case. Unfortunately, the case is stuck in shipping. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. So I will bring it back to the meeting in December with the case so you can see what that looks like. Currently, our plan is on updating all of our teacher devices to replace our Surface Go's. The Surface Go's were purchased in 2019, and we'd like to upgrade our teachers to a laptop device. The one thing with the Surface Go's is those were meant to be used as not full-time devices. Obviously, during COVID, they were utilized more, so their batteries are dying. So one thing we know where we need to upgrade our teachers, but also we're having to see where the machines are dying in place, essentially. We know that our teachers have asked for this. This is one thing they asked at the very beginning of the bond. When we surveyed them and said, what could you use? This was number 3 on the list. We knew we had the Surface Go's and could hold those out for so long, but now we're at that key time period. We've been watching pricing go up and down and all over the place, like everything, going on. The kicker is, we know after talking to all of our vendors that the REMC and the MyDeal prices are going to increase at the beginning of the calendar year, so in January. We actually have one vendor with MyDeal who's given us the pricing after January. That quote came in $154,000 in the current quote we have. If it went to that point, we would need to make an adjustment and make a different plan. We don't want to do that. We want our teachers to have the laptop device very similarly to students, because we know so much of our resources now are technology-based. And knowing that they're looking for that. So that's one reason why we're bringing this a little earlier than we had planned, because we really want to be able to, if we're awarded in December, the opportunity to capitalize on this price savings, as well as provide our teachers with a device. Just to keep you guys informed, there's about a 60-day lead time on these. So if it's approved in December, we would anticipate having them in February, and we would like to, if all timelines work, get them in teachers' hands by March.
Colleagues, comments or questions regarding the new teacher device proposal?
Have we budgeted for those? Are these within our
Yep.
wish list?
Yep, so in my technology bond project plan, we had budgeted about $475,000, so this will come in quite a bit lower than that.
So you can buy more things?
What,
I see Darren over there going, yeah, extra money.
we can, or we can adjust it to other things, yes, but,
Thank you.
yes, yep.
Treasurer Sutherland.
Was teacher input solicited relative to the selection of this particular device?
Yes. So one thing we talked about and looked at with teachers was whether they wanted a micro device or they wanted a bigger set device. Overall, standard from teachers was that they wanted a bigger screen device, so that's a 14-inch device. We compared at a 12-inch all the way to a 15-inch. Surprisingly, a 14-inch comes in at that great pricing point. A 15 comes in about $1,000 a device, and a 13 comes in at $995 a device. So that 14 hits that price point we would want to hit, and the teachers really liked it. We also looked at the possibility of bringing in a Chromebook device similar to the students. The tricky piece to that is you can't use Windows products on there, so that erodes into you can't use Excel or Word, so that's not as conducive for a teacher as we would have liked, and the teachers did not want that. So that's why we're recommending this device.
Thank you for doing that legwork. It's very much appreciated. The other piece of my question is these surface goes that we currently have, I recognize that in dog years, they're old, but in calendar years, they're only 4 years old. Do we have another way that we can utilize these for our students or in other capacities for our district?
Yeah, so we're looking at that. Once, if this is awarded, we'll bring those devices back in. We're going to see what's viable and what's not. Some of them are no longer holding a charge at all, or they have to be plugged in, so those wouldn't be utilized, but we're going to try to recycle and utilize what we can within the district with students, for sure.
Thank you. Is it 450 that we have of those as well, or something around there?
Currently, yes, it's around that number. We ordered 450 Surface Go's and we ordered Surface Go's, so we want to keep that number given break fix or anything that we need there. This price also does include a 3-year warranty.
Thank you.
Colleagues, other comments or questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, that takes us to the end of tonight's information items, so we're now going to move on to new business. And we're going to turn it over to Secretary Joslin.
Superintendent's Recommendation 382324, School of Choice 2024-2025 Resolution. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following School of Choice resolution for the 2024-2025 school year. Whereas the Waterford Board of Education has the option permitted by Section 105 of the State School Aid Act of 1979 as amended by Public Act 300 of 1998, and whereas it has the option for purposes of Sections 105 and 105C to accept applications of non-resident students from outside the district who reside in the Oakland Intermediate School District and/or continuous immediate school district, which this district is a constituent district for the enrollment in our district for the 2024-2025 school year. And whereas the Waterford School District has the option to operate a school of choice program in the Waterford School District for second semester in compliance with the statutory requirements of Section 105 and 105C, and whereas the Waterford School District has outstanding school programs and there may be room for students from other districts to participate in these highly quality schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Waterford School District chooses to participate in the aforementioned Schools of Choice program for 2024-2025, and be it further resolved that the Waterford School District will accept applications for the 2024-2025 school year for the junior kindergarten/kindergarten grade levels, Section 105, and up to 20 students entering grades 9 through 12 and accepted into the Waterford STEM Academy through the application process based on the available seats, Section 105. I so move.
Support.
Support.
Thank you. Colleagues, the motion has been moved and supported. What comments or questions do we have? Really quick, this is this is the policy we've had now for years and years, so again, just staying the course, what we've done for previous years. Any comments, questions?
You want to mention how it's the kindergarten only? This is, people believe that Waterford Schools is an open school district. You can come in at any time, and you can't unless you come in kindergarten or you live in Waterford. We don't accept students after kindergarten that don't live in Waterford, so.
We accept up to 20 who apply in our,
For the
STEM program.
STEM program, yeah. Where just people think, well, just anybody can come here or anybody can do this or that. You have to either live here or start it out in kindergarten or the STEM program.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, the motion carries 6-0. Secretary Joslin, please.
Superintendent's Recommendation 392324, reinstatement of student E2324. In keeping with Michigan law, a committee consisting of school board members, a school administrator, teacher, and parent of a pupil in the district reviewed a petition for the reinstatement of student E-23-24 who was previously expelled by the Waterford School District. After reviewing all facts and information in the matter and considering applicable state law, it is recommended that the Board of Education reinstate student E-23-24 with conditions. I so move.
Support.
Support.
Thank you. The motion has been moved and supported. Colleagues, what comments or questions do we have? And first, I'd like to thank Member Wagner and Member Patricia for their service on this committee. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion carries 6-0. Okay, colleagues, that takes us to the end of new business. Let's now please move on to a public comment. So we have some green cards here. So we're now going to take comments on non-action items. So I'm going to read these out and welcome folks up to the lectern here. As a quick reminder, please, our comments are limited to 3 minutes in duration. Members of the public are invited to share comments. However, this is not intended to be a time for questions and answers. Lastly, participants may speak only once on the same topic and are, of course, asked to avoid statements that are personally directed, abusive, or obscene. So we'll welcome up first Ms. Heather Mitchell, please.
Can we go in a different order? By any chance, Jennifer Taylor?
Sure. And so you might hear Member Patricia, he's our timekeeper here, so
Okay, I'll read as quickly as I can.
thank you so much and welcome.
I've been an athletic parent at Kettering since 2018, when my then freshman played basketball. In his 4 years as a Kettering basketball player, he went through 3 different head coaches. There was never an opportunity for the program to take hold or for the players to develop relationships with their coach. Now, with the resignation of the football coach, my current junior will have had 2 different coaching staffs in his 4 years as a Kettering football player, if he chooses to return to football. He also runs track where there have been 3 different head coaches in the last 3 years. As a result of the football coach's resignation, there are currently many football players who are good, upstanding kids that are talking about not playing next year, mine being one of them. Some kids are even talking about wanting to transfer to other schools so they can play football for a school that wants them to succeed. I'm sure I don't have to tell you, as folks that are highly invested in our young people, how important being a part of an athletic team is for these young people. When my son started high school and the football team, he was shy, introverted, wasn't confident in himself, and thought he didn't belong on the football field. Just 1 year after joining the team, he had developed into a confident young man who had made a lot of friends, learned about responsibility and discipline, and has stayed out of trouble. I attribute that in part to his relationship with the football coach. If you care about the future of the athletic programs at Kettering and these young people, you will take action now and do what needs to be done to ensure the longevity of these programs. Is it okay if we hand out some screenshots to you to review?
Yeah, Ms. Roberts will take it.
Okay. The first handout is a screenshot that was taken from the Huddle account when the football coach informed the players he was resigning. The comments that were made by the players are absolutely disgusting. Another screenshot is a meme that was made depicting the football coach. This meme was posted to Facebook by a football parent, as you can see at the top, and while it was subsequently taken down days after it was posted, it was online long enough to be reposted. This is just a tiny sample of the abusive, bullying behavior the coaches have endured all season, not only from these players, but their parents. When the football coach faced allegations earlier in the season and subsequently cleared of all false allegations against him, there was no accountability for the parents or players that intentionally made up heinous false lies out of spite. I was told that the fact that the coach was coming back to the field served as a sign of support from the administration and school district, when in reality, the fact that these parents and players felt no consequence for their behavior served as a sign to them and others that they can continue to abuse and bully their coach and other adults. These screenshots are proof. Imagine if you had been falsely accused of those things and how that would affect not only you, but your family, and no one was held accountable. I personally witnessed the mother of a player confront the coach, throw a temper tantrum, and storm out of our banquet because her son was given an honorable mention and not an award. This is the mother of a child that is making the abusive comments in the screenshot. I will leave you with this final question. Why are Kettering coaches being put on leave and under investigation for allegations, but students and parents are not held accountable for their actions when proof is provided to you? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Tamara,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you. You might hear a couple of the same points being made, but we tried to divide it amongst us. Good evening, my name is Tamara Toombs. I have been involved in the Kettering Football Boosters for the last 2 years. My son Matthew is a sophomore who played varsity this year. As I was trying to figure out what to say this evening, I came across a document on the Board of Education's website called How to Effectively Communicate with School Officials. This document informs parents on the chain of command and where to begin the communication sequence regarding a problem or concern. When news that Coach Bob had been put on leave, many parents voiced their concerns via email and phone calls to administration. According to the document on your website, parent questions are easily and completely answered by communication directly with the educator in charge. We as parents followed the chain of command, did our due diligence with multiple emails and phone calls, only to have most of them unanswered by administration. Our questions and concerns were not easily and completely answered. One day our coach was on leave, and a week later he was reinstated. As parents, we expected a little more than an email stating he was reinstated. No explanation, no discussion, no questions answered, just that he was back to being the head coach. Once again, we reached out via email and phone calls and never heard back from administration. The lack of communication was staggering. The letter that was sent to administration with the heinous accusations against Coach Bob were proven to be untrue. No consequences or actions were taken against these parents and athletes who fabricated lies to try and get a great coach fired. These athletes were allowed to continue to play, and our coaches were told not to discipline them. They continued to harass, disrespect the coaching staff, boosters, parents, and other players. These players have a proven disciplinary problems, including bullying. 2 of these athletes, who have been prior suspended, were accused of bullying cheerleaders on a bus riding home from an away game. It was reported by a coach to the administration. No action was taken. The coach was told to let us know if it happens again. Why are these players not being held accountable, and what kind of lesson is this teaching our children? I'm sure if you request the records from building administration, you will have a better understanding of the culture that has been allowed to perpetuate. Blatant disrespect toward coaches, parents, and boosters has been allowed for far too long. Players are afraid to speak up because they have been threatened with retaliation. 4 families whose athletes started and played every game were allowed to bring down an entire football program. The lack of support is embarrassing. Coach Bob put his heart and soul into this football program. We lost a great coach and mentor who stressed the importance of academics, instilled pride in our boys, and coached with integrity. This is a huge loss for Waterford Kettering. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Toon. Just so I'm keeping track. Your name?
Sarah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Jane Regan, and I've been a Waterford Kettering football booster mom for 2 years. My son is a sophomore who played on varsity this year, and our family has been very involved and invested in all things Kettering football. We moved here during COVID, and I can say with full confidence that if it weren't for Coach and his football program, my son would not be where he is today. Sorry. He told me countless times he didn't want to make any friends here. He just wouldn't. He didn't care. To say that he was not thrilled with the move would be a huge understatement, sorry. But once he joined the football team and met Coach and got a taste of his passion and excitement for Kettering strong football, it was off to the races. The list of the positive impact is too long, and it's just not the time. As much as I would love, as much as I wish that we were here celebrating all of that, sadly, it's just not. We're here because of the snowball effect that escalated so drastically that he left. He left. I'm sorry, guys. He left because of such an unbearable, literally needed to physically remove himself from such an unbearable situation because of the effect it had on his family. And this whole time I've been just kept thinking to myself, how the heck did we get here? help me make sure that something like this never happens again. So that's why we're here. The amount of unnecessary drama caused by grown adults within a high school football program, something that's supposed to be fun and usually teaches the importance of teamwork. There's no I in team type stuff. And yet, we're here sharing that that was not that way. When the involvement of a parent crosses the line into bullying and blatant disrespect towards coaches and even other athletes, who's supposed to have their backs? Whose responsibility is that to take care of that? The repercussions have been profound. They created a toxic environment that undermined coaches and authority and the team's cohesion. The negativity trickled down. It affected the morale, their performance, and ultimately the entire football program as a whole. Even more distressing was the lack of accountability from Kettering administration in handling the situation. This whole thing started with life-ruining allegations out of anger and spite, and an email that was signed WKHS football parents without any consideration for the rest of us. Allegations that, if true, you would have thought that they would have informed us all, so we could go and ask our kids, come together, figure it out. But that was not the case. I was personally invited to this powwow where this email was written. I declined to go because it was just too late. I have little ones, etc. But I asked the parent, I said, please keep me posted. I mean, if something serious is going on, like I obviously want to know about it. But that also wasn't the case. The next morning, she said that we already sent it. Like I said, life-ruining allegations. So I took a step back, and I sat my kiddo down. I said, hey, is this your experience? And it was a much different story. He explained that if, in fact, I said, can you rack your brain? He said, if this is what they're talking about, that's really messed up. I am a WKHS football parent. I had nothing to do with that email, and that was not our experience whatsoever. I apologize. So the fact that they signed it like that was obviously infuriating. The more I talked to parents, it was the same exact way. Like boys who weren't even friends with each other said the same thing. If that's what they're talking about, that's nuts. It was a mutiny, a literal coup against our head coach. After the investigation, when he was cleared and able to return, that was that. The fact that there's very serious false allegations had been made, and then there was a group trying to get coach fired, as some bragged about in the locker room.
Ms. Reagan,
Okay.
we appreciate it.
Yep, I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, I believe now Ms. Mitchell?
Great, thank you. Thank you all for your time. As stated, Heather Mitchell, I am a 15-year resident of Waterford, and I have had students in the Waterford School District all 15 years. So tonight, in consideration of all points made so far this evening, there is a collective state of mind that it is time for the administration and the school board to look very closely at why coaches don't stay, and what can be done differently to better the athletic programs at Kettering and the culture in general. Personally, I am an 8-year parent of Kettering athletes. In those years, I have had a front row seat to the revolving door that has become our coaches in multiple programs. However, it isn't until my recent deep-rooted experience in my role as the Football Booster president, in which I witnessed firsthand the loyalty, the dedication, the passion, the compassion, and the time that was poured into our football program by our recently resigned coach. It makes me wonder how many other coaches were we unfortunate to lose over the past several years across how many different programs. It is beyond time for change. Some of the demands we feel strongly that need to be put in place are exit interviews of all coaches who churn, starting with the most recent. Creating hiring committees which include representation by program booster leadership, school board members. In the present situation, it is my understanding that Pat Donahue has some relevant football experience that could prove beneficial. We also feel that it should include the athletic leadership, athletic department leadership, school administration leadership, all inclusive for a hiring committee. We also believe that we should have full transparency of the hiring process and status throughout the process, and not just recent replacement of the coach, but in the future as well. We also feel that there should be an implementation of regular check-ins, syncs between active coaches and their school leadership and administration, creating a safe place to be transparent of current struggles, blockers, and issues experienced in real time, changing our culture from a reactive to a proactive culture. We also feel that parent-athlete surveys and feedback touch points should be taken to learn more of a full program perspective. Again, setting programs up to be proactive. Finally, we feel that holding all players and parents accountable for their behavior. Zero no tolerance policy for false allegations, abusive bully-type behaviors to coaches, athletes, boosters, or fellow program families. In closure, the Kettering parents and students need to know that the administration and the Board of Education care about what is happening within our sports programs and schools. We need to change the narrative that Kettering has a weaker athletics program in the district, sending many of our strong athletes to our sister school. The Waterford School District and Waterford Kettering High School have let a good coach and man slip through our fingers, and likely many others before him. We failed to secure what could have been a budding program by being afraid to hold people accountable for their behavior or show proper level of administrative support required to reduce consistent churn. It is time we reprioritize the success of our programs and ensuring the proper process to be in place to instill a correct resources are supported, and there is a zero tolerance policy for behaviors that directly bring a toxic culture. There is no time like the present to make a change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, you four, for your thoughtful comments and your preparation. So what we do here is we've taken notes, all of us, and we'll turn this over to Superintendent Lindberg, who will follow up with you to learn more. And then we will...
I just have a question. Like, I was supposed to be leaving for Florida, and I found out about this meeting and came, so I didn't get my name on the card. Is it possible for me to say something very quick?
Yes, by all means. Yeah.
I just didn't
by
want
all
to
means.
hop over and skip you.
No, great. I'm glad.
Walker, but so you might want to set that timer loud. Just helping you out there.
Start waving, hey.
You know. So I have nothing to share, right? Like, that's how quick it was. My name's Carrie Powell. These ladies touched in on how important it was to keep the coach, just because of how great he was, right? Before my son's a sophomore, we were looking to put him in a private school. Ran into Bob. He encouraged him to show up as an 8th grader to work out, you know, start meeting kids, be comfortable. I adopted a 12-year-old boy, right? Like, not looking for adoration or anything, but like, you know, he doesn't fit in. Like, it's hard for him. Bob made him feel safe. What happened with those 5 families directly affected him. And what bothers me is no one asked how it affected my kid. 4 or 5 kids directly impacted 100 kids. There are 95 to 96 other kids directly affected. Now my son may be completely affected differently than theirs. But when it triggers my son to having night terrors again, things that we thought we finally worked through, questioning like, is this true? Can I not trust him? Can I not trust her? Can I not trust this teacher? You know, people that we told him, hey, they're here to help you. Like, we put him in what we felt was a safe environment, and then we're being told this. Now, I will say Allison and the principal took a little bit to get to him, but I did. They talked to us. My son was very open with them, but he's angry, right? He's very upset that this is what's happened to what he calls his family, because quite frankly, it takes a village. And when you take one of my leaders out of my village, it kind of falls apart. So as you guys are worried about coaches coming and going, you're going to start losing your students. And when you start losing your students, you're going to start losing your funding. So that should be also a concern, right? Like, that's important. When you start losing your funding, then you're going to start losing your teachers. Then you're going to start losing other things, right? This is very important. It starts here. Accountability needs to happen. And I know this was a rare instance, right? Like, probably new for you guys. It was new for us. And I sat through it. I listened to how horrible these parents talked. And it was utter disgusting, right? But I just want you to know how impactful it was on a child, right? Like, I'm sure if you brought kids in and let them tell you exactly how they felt, to hear other kids brag about dancing around like, oh my God, I got him on video doing this, when they didn't. right? Like when it was actually told, hey, show me the video. They didn't have the video. These women work tirelessly to provide a fantastic football program, right? Meals, all this other stuff. The people who are doing that show up, upset their kids get benched, and start this. They sit around a bonfire and drink, and then a stepdad sits there with a computer, boom, and fires off an email and signs, considering I'm a Waterford Kettering parent. So I just needed you to know that this is a parent, you know, like my child was directly affected. And please take that into consideration. And I'm going to ignore that timer and just keep talking for a moment. Bob, I'm not afraid of you.
No, I'm just like letting you know.
Yeah, so I'll wrap it up, but I thank you for your time, but please, it's very important. I mean, Bob's a great man. My son's never took to a man like that. Men used to harm him. He saw a man, he was deathly afraid of him. If he walked through here right now, you wouldn't even know. And that's all attributed to my husband and Bob, men like that, and we let him go because someone couldn't back him up. So when you lose the leader of your village, you're going to start losing everyone else. Just please keep that in mind.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Thank you for letting me talk.
No, and Ms. Powell, if you would, we have these green cards. If you wouldn't mind filling one out, and Ms. Roberts would take it, and let us make sure.
Where are the green cards? I mean, all my years, I've never...
They're right up there on the podium, right near the entrance. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? No? Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for your preparation, for following the chain of command. That stuff does make a difference. And we will hand this over to Superintendent Lindbergh tonight, and he will follow up and keep the board abreast of the situation. But again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent, colleagues. Let's now move on to our Board of Education reports this evening. Are there any board reports tonight?
Oh, do you want to go first, Rob?
Let's do
No, I
Member
can-
Patricia, then Member Webb.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to speak, but I had an opportunity to go to Riverside for their Halloween party, and it was a lot of fun. It had been a while since I'd been to one, you know, the kids dressed up again. It was different. I'm used to being in the building. They walked around the track, but it was kind of cold out, but they were resilient, and it just a lot of neat costumes. One of the teachers has a little boombox he'd drag along playing some music. It was a lot of fun. Seeing my grandson walk around, he, could kind of see, but yeah, he wasn't paying attention. The Mott football. They have a football game coming up this Saturday at 1 o'clock at Troy Athens, and it is the, I believe, quarterfinals.
Semifinals.
The winner of this one goes to play for the state championship. So that's kind of exciting. It's real good. And the other one, my friend Jim Larkin, former board member. He was a good guy. Passed away. The Kettering Stadium is named after him because he was a student here in Waterford. He was a teacher, a coach, a school board member, school board president. And there was one time that he was president. He was a fun guy. He was like grandpa. He gave me a lot of positive things. I mean, I'm this, that, down. He was always positive. He absolutely loved Waterford, his knowledge of Waterford. We actually went to this same elementary school as Tom Bryce. It was just kind of weird. 3 of us on the board all went to the same elementary, and they were old. So that, was kind of neat. But there was a time that when Jim was president, someone wanted to come down and speak. He said, just hold on, you will have your time for this. And I don't know if the person was just being belligerent or didn't hear him. Just sit back down, sir, we'll be right with you. And the guy kept coming down. Sit down now. And Dave Smith, who was on the board at that time, I got a coach. But by this time, I think the guy understood, and he turned around and he went and sat back down. So I don't know if it was he didn't hear or but it was just, in talking with Dave afterwards, I said, hey, I got to protect Coach. Coach was, this guy was talking, he wasn't listening, so it was he was a very good guy. Yeah, we lost a good one there, so all is good.
Thank you for sharing, Rob. Ms. Mr. Larkin is certainly a legend here, so. Member Wagner?
I just wanted to let everyone know, as Rob mentioned, Waterford Mott is playing in the semifinals on Saturday. At 10 o'clock, about 10:15, they are doing a send-off at Mott's parking lot to kind of cheer on the boys. If you weren't able to get tickets to go to the game, they're asking the community to come just to kind of give them a nice rally cry as they leave the parking lot to head to Troy Athens. So if you have nothing going on Saturday morning and you want to come cheer on our boys and wish them good luck, we would appreciate to see a much more of the community come there and give them a good send-off. 10:15? I think 10, 10:15. 10. They're recommending to be at the parking lot by 10 because I believe the buses are leaving at 10:15.
10 a.m. Parking lot for a send-off.
And also, if you have nothing else going on, tomorrow night, I believe Mason is doing another, they had one tonight at 7, but they have another performance of their musical this weekend, 7 o'clock at Mason Middle School. That's it.
Member Donahue?
Thank you. Just wanted to say thank you to the donor for the wonderful donation. I mean, that's awesome for Waterford Mott, but also just glad to see all the other athletic facility improvements that are going on through the district. Those are awesome. Getting that board update and seeing the pictures that's going on throughout the district is, it's really nice to see those updates happening. Congrats to our Assistant Superintendent and Director of Finance there for the unmodified opinion, okay, for the audit. That's awesome to hear that. And last thing I wanted to talk about was had the chance to go to the school board state conference the past Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a 4-day conference in Lansing. Lots of different classes and clinics that were available for school board members to attend, to learn from other districts, and even our own board president was presenting up there, so that was great to see. But things like schools, districts, safety and security, cybersecurity, communicating effectively in difficult times. There's just a lot of different opportunities for school board members to learn a lot, reflect back on our own learning and what we're doing in our own districts. So I think the opportunity to be able to go to that.
Member Donahue, and thank you for going and representing us, so appreciate that. Let's go Member Torres, then Member Sutherland, please.
I just also wanted to reiterate the accomplishments of Waterford Mott football team. And I think it's really just, they've had a lot of adversity this year with their field, and anybody who's played sports, you know that that's a big deal. You lose your field, your stadium, people got to travel to different places. So they've really overcome a lot of adversity, and to make it as far as they have is just amazing. I think we've all said that, there's going to be this send-off at 10 a.m. on Saturday. The bus leaves at 10:15. And everybody's trying to get over to the game. It's going to be at Troy Athens. You can get your tickets. I got mine today. You can get it on that link. It works now, and so get it. We want to have the Waterford community there for support. It seems like you go on social media, you go around, everybody's talking about it. So I think there's going to be a lot of people there for Waterford Mott. And again, kudos for them in the adversity. It makes it even more of an accomplishment of what they've overcome this year. And then to Rob's point, I went to the Cooley Trunk or Treat event, and all the elementary schools are doing this now, and it's just really turns out to be a great event for the kids. They love it, and it's almost like you don't even see them as much getting out on actually Halloween night because there's so many trunk or treats, but and they can hit all these cars all at once. But it's really a great event. The teachers come out at Cooley. The teachers came out. The parent, the PTO was there. Everybody had their cars decorated. I think we had 30 cars. And the teachers come out and come see the parents and the kids, and it's a really great event. So I'm really proud that we do that here in Waterford, and it seems like every elementary school does it. But it's really a great event. But that's all. Thank you.
Doris? Sutherland?
Thank you. First of all, great board comments tonight. Thank you all for your tremendous involvement in all the different areas of our community and our school. I do want to commend you, Pat, and Mike, I think you attended the conference as well, or were you, I guess, you were kind of both? You gave a presentation. So it's the commitment and dedication to your role, and it's inspiring and deeply appreciated. I think you know, we do this because we all do this because we're passionate about the Waterford School District and about kids, and recognizing that, you know, there's always more that we could be doing, that we could be learning, and so I commend you for taking that time. That was really, really incredible. I do want to also honor and pay tribute to Jim Larkin. I appreciate your comments. I know you knew him exceptionally well. I knew him as a leader, but not personally, and really grateful for his contributions to our community and for leaving really big shoes to fill for those of us that are here on this board or in our community doing work on behalf of our students. So. And go. I literally still know every word to the Waterford Mott Corsair fight song, and I'm about ready to sing it if we don't move on. I am so excited for them and so proud of these kids. I mean, just so proud and so happy for them to have this unbelievable opportunity. It's really incredible. So thank you to the coaching staff and to the teachers and to the principal and to the whole entire district for it takes a village to get a kind of program built like that. So congratulations to Coach Farr and to the entire staff to get those kids those opportunities and to get them to this point. Thank you all. And happy, two other things, sorry. Also, Waterford Kettering is doing Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I know Mason has their musical, but it's actually, I believe, started tonight, and it goes tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, and then next weekend as well at the Waterford Kettering PAC. So you might want to check that out. Their musicals, you know, all of our performing arts in Waterford are stellar and definitely worth the time to check that out. A lot cheaper than Broadway, but almost as good. That's right.
Almost.
Well.
Okay, they have a higher budget.
Yeah, that's right.
Props are better.
That's right.
Really quick, again, to echo all of us up here, thanks to Mike Bowen for that really generous and thoughtful donation. Again, just a testament to the great community we have here. Just thank you from the bottom of our hearts up here. Yeah, we had a great time at the MASB Annual Leadership Conference, and thanks, Pat, for being there. Pat and I had a chance to sort of catch up afterwards and debrief, and just that was really great. We had a good time up there. Also, Channel 22, there have been some changes to Channel 22. Thank you, Sarah. If you haven't tuned in to Channel 22 recently, which you should, it has been modified. We have all sorts of information. It is a greatest hits of Waterford schools right now. So thank you so much to Sarah. It's a big deal. My parents called. They said, Mike, have you seen Channel 22? So yeah, if you haven't, give it a look. And to that end, Channel 22 has a long list of all of our holiday concerts and events. Go there, check them out. Go check out our wonderful and amazing talented students. And Sarah, thank you for getting a microphone from Member Sutherland at 10 a.m. at the Mott parking lot to sing the fight song.
He's kidding. He's kidding.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Right.
All right, excellent. Superintendent report, please.
Thank you. It was an exciting weekend for our Wired sixth grade team from Pierce Middle School, who competed in their first regular season tournament at the middle school level. It was a great experience for this team as they moved up from the elementary level this year. We are quite proud as they took home the Robot Design Award and Engineering Notebook Award from the tournament. In addition to the awards, the team earned a spot at the middle school state championships in March. The Fran Anderson Making a Difference scholarship winners have been announced for Waterford. Dan Taylor from Waterford Mott and Elena Kimmerer from Waterford Kettering will each receive a $5,000 scholarship. Scholarships will be presented at the Fran Anderson Making a Difference Junior Grand Marshal and Scholarship Ceremony on December 2nd in downtown Pontiac as part of the Holiday Extravaganza Parade. The parade starts at 11 a.m. and is a festive holiday event for the communities of Waterford, White Lake, Pontiac, and Auburn Hills, featuring the Winter Fun Festival. Stop by for some holiday fun. I am excited to share that WSD, our very own athletic director, Allison Sartorius, has been named the Oakland County Athletic Director Association's AD of the Year. She earned this distinction by a vote of all of her public and private athletic directors in Oakland County. She will be honored at a special awards ceremony and banquet on December 20th. Congratulations, Allison. Also, congratulations, as been mentioned tonight, to the Corsairs on capturing the regional title with their win over Gibraltar Carlson last Friday, securing a spot in the semifinals. Mott will take on Warren Days de La Salle at Troy Athens this Saturday at 1 p.m. We're so proud of the team and their stellar season and wish them the best of luck at Saturday's game. Go Corsairs! Lastly, I'd like to wish all of our staff, families, and community a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Lindberg. Okay, colleagues, by roll call vote, the board will recess to closed session for the purpose of evaluating the superintendent. No action will be taken during closed session, and the regular meeting will be adjourned at the conclusion of the closed session. Secretary Johnson, will you please take roll call vote to move to closed session, please?
Member Torres?
Yes.
Member Petrucia?
Yes.
Member Sutherland?
Yes.
Member Ristet?
Yes.
Member Wagner?
Yes.
Member Donahue?
Yes.
Myself, I'm a yes.
Carries 7-0. Okay, colleagues, let's take a quick bathroom break, and we'll meet back in our normal room. So 5 minutes or so. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Welcome, Mr. Scott Morrell.